Evening. My name is Ken Mejia-Beal. I'm the chair of the Democratic Party of DuPage County, and this is Chair Chat. Tonight's special guest, we are very excited to have him, is Alexi Giannoulias, and he is running for Secretary of State here in Illinois. And Alexi, welcome to Chair Chat. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure.
Well, no problem. It's an honor to have you here, and I have some questions and that I know our DuPage Democrats want to know, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. So I'm going to jump right in. You, my friend, served as the 72nd Illinois State Treasurer from 2007 to 2011. What are some of the policies that you put in place that you are the proudest of?
Well, first of all, it's great to see you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to see all of you. Sorry, you might hear kids and dogs. It's a little hectic, so I apologize.
We love kids and dogs.
Okay. The dog is not mine, the kids are. So, but it's great to see all of you. And before I get started, I do want to say what you guys have done in DuPage County is absolutely incredible. When I was campaigning for Barack Obama, who was running for the U.S. Senate in 2004, DuPage County looked much different. Then when I ran for state treasurer in 2006, didn't look that much better. And then when I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2010, we started seeing a couple rumblings, but to see what's taken place in DuPage is really outstanding, and that's a testament to all of you. So thank you for what you've done for the party. Thank you for what you've done for the state. Thank you for what you've done for our democracy, for our planet. DuPage is amazing, and we've been out there a number of times. We're going to come out as so much that you're going to get sick of seeing me. And congrats to my friend Ken. What a great chairman, great friend, outstanding leader. So thank you for making time to hear from me. And I'll try and be as brief as possible. I became state treasurer in 2006, and one of the things that I always talked about, and that we're talking about in this campaign, is not just winning an election for Secretary of State. It's about elevating the next generation of leaders, about building a farm team, of helping other potential and future elected officials. And I will tell you, when I became state treasurer, my first hire was a woman named Robin Kelly as my chief of staff, who's now a United States Congresswoman, head of the Democratic Party of Illinois, a great leader. It was always about working as a team and being collaborative. My second hire as my deputy treasurer was a young man named Raja Krishnamurthy, who's now a United States Congressman. Debbie Myers-Martin was my director of outreach. She's a state representative. A number of folks have sort of come up, and that's something that I'm very proud of. So using this race, Secretary of State's race, and if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, the office of the Secretary of State, to help make this office more than just about me, is something that will continue to be enormously important to me. A number of things we did when I was state treasurer. First, ethics and transparency. My first day in office, we signed the most wide-ranging, comprehensive ethics bill in state government. We wanted to send a message that in the state treasurer's office, there will never be pay to play. Transparency is always important. We put all the state's investments online for the first time in Illinois' history. We also went after credit card companies that went after college students. We introduced low interest loan programs to help people start their first business, buy their first home. We gave scholarship, our Fallen Hero Scholarship Program, where we gave scholarships to young boys and girls young men and women, I should say, whose parents died in combat. But I would say, to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, all these policies that we put together, we were one of the first state treasurer's office in the country to talk about our Clean Rewards program, which is one of the first environmental programs. This was in 2007, mind you, in the country. That's something I was very proud of. But most importantly, I think it's always been about fighting for working families and fighting for those who don't have a voice. And during the Great Recession, I happened to be state treasurer during the Great Recession. And there's a company called Hart Schaffner Marks, which is the nation's oldest suit maker. They made President Obama suits. They were having a tough time because of the recession. Wells Fargo, which is a big bank which received billions of dollars in bailout money, was going to shut them down. We worked with organized labor. We fought back. We told them they would not do business with the state of Illinois if they shut this company down. We worked really, really hard. They relented. We used the power of the purse to put pressure on them. They relented, and we saved over 600 jobs just by fighting for working families. That's something that I was very proud of. So transparency, ethics, helping those less fortunate, fighting for working families, working on environmental issues. I think that prepares me well for this office, being the only candidate in this race who's actually held a statewide office, understanding the programs that are available, understanding the ability to work with people, manage people, and build that next generation of leadership, I think is enormously important.
Thank you, and you did a great job as treasurer, and we, the state of Illinois, just the transparency and the ethics. So that kind of leads into my next question, is what are some of the policies that you are pushing for to promote as Secretary of State?
Well, so there are a number of things that we've talked about, and I will tell you that what I'm most proud of during this campaign, it's been a policy-driven campaign. And I'm happy to talk about the endorsements we've received and the progressive groups that have jumped on board. But at the end of the day, I am running for this office because I believe I have the best ideas to help modernize the office. But I also think it's important to have that experience. So number one, modernization. Modernization will be at the forefront of everything that we do in the Secretary of State's office. Jesse White has done an outstanding job as Secretary of State, but technology and modernization are crucial to moving this office forward. So as the state agency that more Illinoisans, interact with on a daily basis than any other, it acts as a retail operation, providing customer service to customers, just like stores and restaurants. And COVID has forced us to rethink how we can improve that customer experience by modernizing and using new technology. Our campaign has been the only one to offer new ideas like our Skip the Line program that allows people to schedule appointments and not endure long lines or wait times. This is just the first plank in our campaign's modernization effort that includes things like digital driver's license and state IDs and the creation of an app, vision tests online. So modernizing the office and making it easier and more convenient for people to access services remotely is a top priority, and we will enact that on day one. Number two, I mentioned transparency. As the keeper of lobbyist registration and reports, I will make sure that there are even more disclosures with as much detail as possible for every lobbyist in the state, and that it's easier for the public to access this information. The scandals that have rocked this state have had an impact on voters, and sadly, it has made the public less trusting here in Illinois when hearing elected officials talk about hard choices that we need to make as citizens, and increasing transparency is the best way to confront this trust deficit head on. For too long, we have allowed serious ethical reform to flounder while corrupt officials have exploited their offices for personal gain. If I'm elected Secretary of State, I will support a package of ethics reforms which will protect our citizens and our public institutions from abuse and double dealing. We'll work to, number one, prevent elected officials from serving as lobbyists. Number two, end the revolving door between elected office and lobbying. Number three, create a statewide lobbyist database. Number four, work to increase disclosure rules for both elected officials and lobbyists. And number four, ban the shady practice, I should say, of shadow lobbying. I'm the only candidate in this race to propose an official ethics package, and that's something that I'm proud of personally, and that I think is crucial politically to keep this seat in Democrat hands. Number three, going after white collar criminals. Many people don't know this, but the Secretary of State is effectively the SEC of the state of Illinois. And Jesse White has done admirable work on this front, but we will aggressively build on that success. I want to add even more resources and more focused direct involvement to protect ordinary investors and go after the bad guys, which, by the way, has the potential to generate significant additional revenue for the state. That means, number one, increasing the number of investigators, auditors, and examiners. And number two, enhancing financial literacy programs for all of our citizens, but especially those that are most likely to fall prey to these schemes. I'll also introduce legislation calling for stronger safeguards to protect the elderly, especially from falling prey, and tougher asset forfeiture laws to recoup hard-earned dollars for fraud victims. Number 4, jobs. Secretary of State is also responsible, as many of you may know, for corporate registration and business formation in Illinois. Some of the things I plan to do is to use the Business Service Division to recruit more job creators to Illinois. I particularly want to encourage B Corps or beneficial corps to come back to Illinois. Illinois has a long history of strong corporate citizens, and I want to revive that. We have to bring more small businesses back to Illinois. Number 5, libraries. The Secretary of State is the chief librarian of Illinois. The office oversees 3 major library systems that cover the entire state. We have more than 600 libraries under them, and we coordinate over 3,500 academic, public, school, and special libraries statewide. Up until recently, I was a proud member of the Chicago Public Library Board, and I know that this function, our library function, is more important than ever. Sadly, COVID and the remote learning environment has placed too many of our students behind. Our state's libraries can and will be part of catching up. To give you all an idea, before COVID, more than 180,000 people visited our libraries every day. And there are more than 2,500 views of our digital library resources every day. We can expand on these services by offering even more tutoring and more mentoring and more supervision, especially in the summer months and after school hours. We can find ways to make even more electronic offerings available. I also want to bring financial literacy and civic literacy programs into our libraries. Our libraries can and should be cornerstones of our communities. And my aim is to make our libraries a source of pride for our state and a source of empowerment for everyone in Illinois. Lastly, and most importantly, protecting our democracy. I kind of wish that the Secretary of State's office was the chief election authority in Illinois. It isn't. It still, however, plays a key role with programs like Motor Voter, and most importantly, automatic voter registration. We have to make sure that automatic voter registration is implemented efficiently, competently, and effectively. One of my first initiatives as Secretary of State will be to change our automatic voter registration system so that all eligible Illinois voters no longer have to go through additional steps when at a Secretary of State's office facility to register to vote. This will simplify the process of getting registered, and as a result will increase the number of eligible voters registered to vote in the state of Illinois. Another issue that we've talked about is pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds. While other states across the country, sadly and tragically, are doing everything in their power to stop people from voting, we are focused on making sure Illinoisans will have enhanced opportunities to register and vote. This means starting early by allowing 16 and 17-year-old Illinoisans to pre-register to vote when applying for driver's license and state ID, so that the day that they turn 18, they are ready to do their civic duty. Other states do this. We would like to bring that practice to Illinois. I will also use a seat I have at the table regarding elections to make sure Illinoisans are enfranchised, that they can register easily, and that they can access relevant information easily. I will also be a voice for early voting, electronic voting, election day being declared a holiday. I will also use other aspects of my office, like the library function, to advance the civic education that too many did not get in the classroom. I want to just add a little emphasis on the voting rights. What's happening across the country is unfathomably dangerous. Republicans are passing laws to disenfranchise people, and I think this is the biggest threat to our democracy that we've seen in a very long time. Secretaries of State across the country are the last line of defense when it comes to this fight for voting rights. And I think we're a little spoiled here in Illinois. We're, an island of blue amongst a sea of red, but we saw what happened in Virginia. This is an incredibly important race. Voting rights are an incredibly important issue. And as someone who's the son of 2 immigrants, I can tell you, when my parents finally had the ability to vote, it was such an honor, it was such a big deal. So this fight has to continue. Sorry for the really long answer. These are just a few of our initiatives. We've also talked about social justice issues, environmental issues, and that's why I'm so excited about this office.
Well, thank you for the answer. Please don't ever apologize for giving detailed answers, is what we are looking for. We appreciate it. And something you touched on several times within your policies is education. And so it's very clear that education is important to you. It's a kind of the underlying item in every single policy you mention. And I always say that you can look at where folks are going when you look at where they've been. So I just want to ask you, because you did create several scholarship programs for Illinois college students. Can you tell our viewers a little bit more about this and the impact that it actually has on college students?
Yeah, so great point. Education to me is what has made us the greatest country in the world. That's why my parents, both of them, traveled across an ocean so that their kids get the best education possible. And I will tell you, I think it's a fundamental right for kids to be able to go and get the education that they deserve. We had a bunch of scholarship programs for college students. I will tell you also, one of the hidden gems in Illinois are our community colleges. Governor Quinn appointed me to be the chairman of the Illinois Community College System when he was governor a few years back. And we've got some of the finest community colleges in the country. 82 community colleges that do unbelievable work for kids that maybe don't want to or aren't ready to go to a four-year institution yet. We provide crucially important vocational work, and it's more affordable. Some of our schools are really outstanding. I want to make sure I'm a voice for community college. I want to make sure that I'm a voice for early childhood education. Nothing beats an educated society. So that's going to be a priority for us going forward within the Secretary of State's office. Financial literacy, civic literacy, understanding what's really at stake, the fight for our democracy. All these issues are hugely important.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about, and I don't want to mispronounce this, Enola Ventures, why you founded it and how it helps our state?
Yeah, so I've always been a believer in helping startups, and it's an investment company that I started where we invest in not primarily, all our companies, our Illinois companies. We've invested in companies that are tech focused. We invest in a company called Cameo, for example, an Illinois-based company that does virtual autographs. He's built a great business, Stephen Galanis, who was my driver, by the way, when I ran for state treasurer. So helping create jobs and build businesses is something that's always been exciting for me. We give back profits that we made from the company to charities. That's something that I'm also very proud of. I've served on a number of board of nonprofits, CARA, 1 Million Degrees, the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center, some outstanding organizations. And I think it's important to give back. And I think you can make a profit, help build companies, great companies, and find a way to give back. And, we need to have a focus on Illinois companies.
100% agree. You're also a lifelong advocate for the working class. If you could name, and this is going to be hard, I know, but if you could name one item the Secretary of State's office should establish and will establish under your leadership that will make life easier for working folks, what would it be? And if you want to name 2 or 3, I won't stop you.
Well, I've got like 8, but I do want to go back to modernization for a couple minutes, because I do think, when people are waiting 2 and 3 hours at the DMV just to get a license renewed or a state ID, that impacts everyone. The impact is even more grave for working class families or people who have to take off work or find daycare for their kids or bring their kids with them or take 2 buses and wait in the snow for 2 hours to get a driver's license. Modernization of that office will make everyone's life easier. The people who have to go to the DMV can now schedule an appointment. They can go online. We have our people's driver's license and ID on their mobile device. So we think we can cut foot traffic significantly, which will help especially working class families. As we focus on business, business service and helping social entrepreneurs and people who want to start their first business who tend to be in underserved and rural communities, we can really help explain to them the difference between an S Corp and a C Corp and an LLC and the tax implications of all those different corporate setups. So there's a lot that we can do. Most of our programs will focus on working families, middle class, lower middle class families. That's something that's enormously important to me and will help make everyone's lives easier. Not only will it make Illinois consumers easier, it will also make those who work in the Secretary of State's office life easier, which is also why I'm very proud to have received the endorsement of every single organization that has members within the Secretary of State's office. SEIU, which has over 2,500 members that work in the Secretary of State's office, has endorsed us. The Teamsters, the Illinois Federation of Teachers has endorsed us. The operating engineers. So that's something that I'm very proud of. I think is a testament to our ability to work with folks within the office.
It is something you should be proud of. And my last question, and this is the most important question that I will ask you this evening, sir, is you love basketball. So if you could pick your favorite all-time NBA basketball coach, who is it and why?
That's a great question. I am a big Phil Jackson fan. The Bulls are in the 90s. His ability to bring yoga and Zen and work with Dennis Rodman and control Jordan and Pippen, I think is really extraordinary. So I am a huge Phil Jackson fan. Runners up are probably Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich. I'm also a big Steve Kerr fan. So, but everything is Bulls focused.
It's funny you said that. My first is actually Steve Kerr, followed by Phil Jackson, followed by Pat Riley. So not too, yes, not too far off.
I during the Knicks Bulls battles of the 90s, I disliked him so much. It's tough for me to take that bias off, but he is, to win championships with in Miami with the Lakers, he's had an extraordinary run, and he's got the best hair that I've ever.
Great hair.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. If we want to read any information about you, go directly to the source. How can our folks, what website can we go to?
I'll make sure that we put it in the chat. It's alexiforus.com. We're really excited about this election. We could really use everyone's support, ideas, feedback. I will tell you, not that I'm looking past the primary, but I think the general is going to be very tough. I think it's going to be a challenging year. That being said, I'm not one of those fatalistic, dire people who says we're going to get crushed this year. But I do think it's going to take a lot of work. I think it's going to take a lot of work. They interviewed Anzalone, who was Biden's pollster, and he said it was the worst political environment he's seen in 30 plus years. And I think it's up to all of us to engage people, to talk about what Democrats have done, not only what Republicans haven't done and the danger that they bring, to the table, but we have to talk about what we've accomplished, and we have to knock on doors, make phone calls, work our tails off, get out there and remind people what's at stake from a policy standpoint, not just on social justice issues, but on fiscal policy. To me, it's a no-brainer, not just because I'm a Democrat, but I look at everything that Democrats have accomplished, passing an infrastructure bill, focusing on women's rights. Like, I can't believe it's close. So we have to get out there, knock on doors, get engaged, get involved. And we want to use this office as a party building mechanism to help people in DuPage, to help people in Central Illinois, in the collar counties, in the suburbs, get as many people out to vote as possible. So I'm thrilled that all of you made time on a Friday, on a Friday afternoon to hear me. We really need your help, not just in June, but in November. Ken, keep up the outstanding work. You're a great leader with a tremendously bright future. And I look forward to seeing everyone in person sometime soon.
We will see you soon, sir. Have a great evening, and thank you all for joining Chair Chat this evening. Good night.